Let's make sure he's there. Are you there, Joe?
I am here.
Oh, he's here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move over to this screen. We're going to get this thing going. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. That is the one and only Joe Zollo. Best name in the game. How you doing tonight?
Thank you. I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Look, so here's the obvious truth, or not obvious truth. This is the truth. Me and Joe have done a podcast already once. We've already recorded something, and my fault because it was also the week of Valentine's Day, and then the weekend I had to go to a wedding. So literally it was like Monday, and I was like, everything we recorded, we're behind. That's the way this world works now. We're too far behind to put this stuff up. And we'd already had another event happen in between the time that we recorded. So I was like, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do these things live, do them on Twitch, and then we'll go and we'll take this and we'll move it on to podcast stuff and all that territory. But that's kind of what happened now. We moved to this because now it's easier because I can take this content, I can repurpose it, so can Joe. And this will be good for us, for Ape Prime, for everybody, and everything that we got going on now. So, Joe, why don't you tell the people who don't know you yet a little bit about yourself?
Oh, boy. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Joe. So like Justin said, I've done a podcast before. I've worked with Justin a couple times in the past doing some esports events, but graduated Full Sail University, which is where I met him, working in sports marketing right now for a company called Forefront, and just extremely excited to get talking more about esports because that's really the passion there, and that's the goal of where to get to, is to get into that realm. And you may hear me refer to myself, or Justin may refer to me as Chizzy Fizzy. That is my gamer tag. And so if you ever hear that, don't get confused. That's also my gamer tag, and that's who it's being referred to as me.
So do you have, because gamer tags are so synonymous with personalities now, is there people out there who will call you either Chizzy or Chizzy Fizzy, or will they yell that out to you in public?
So only my friends, and they sometimes make fun of it because it sounds like a childish name. I'm hoping to get to the point where I walk down the street and they literally scream Chizzy or Chizzy Fizzy, which would be fantastic. I thoroughly enjoy my name. I don't see an issue with it, but my friends think it is a little bit childish. But of course, what are friends if they don't make fun of you?
Oh, of course. Like I said, my childhood friends would probably love if I went by my old nickname, but I don't. And I mean, now my nickname, which is Jcon, just kind of happened, but it's also my screen name. So I kind of lucked out in that way. But it's funny is that my nickname in Florida came because of my screen name. No one called me Jcon before I moved to Florida. I put Jcon24 as my Xbox gamer tag, played some Halo back in the day, and my friend in film school called me Jcon. And then when I was on a podcast back during film school, they kept doing the J, and then they would take the con scream from Star Trek, so it was Jcon, and that just became who I was. So I got this nickname somehow. It seems like it's like a one I'd always should have, but now I have it. So let's jump right into this thing. I want to touch on a little bit because whether or not we use the content from last time, I want to kind of preface that you've now been to an Overwatch League event. You were at the inaugural one in Dallas, correct?
Correct.
And let's give me so we're going to go and touch on some of the things. We're not going to do all the stuff we did last time because I still want to use some of that content, but just give me, if you could, a rundown of your experience in Dallas during the inaugural weekend.
Sure. So that was my first true esports event I've been to, and it was fantastic. To preface, I'm not a fan of the Dallas Fuel at all. I'm a Boston Uprising fan. That's where I grew up in New England, so I'm a Boston fan. Make fun of me all you want. I know they're not good.
I went through years of Mayhem fans, so we've won one game. We're already talking about 2 games. We're talking about being the best in the league already. So
I mean, they look good.
Yeah, for the first time in 3 seasons.
They look good though.
Yeah, it's
Boston's
true.
look terrible. So at that homestand, I thought they did a very, very good job for their second time around. So the main stage where everything was, it was at Esports Stadium Arlington, which is basically built for esports. They transformed it from a convention center into an actual esports arena. In the main stage area, if you're watching on the broadcast, it was beautiful, but in person was even 100 times better. They had a separate conference hall where they were doing amateur tournaments. They had a bunch of activations. There was an area just outside of the main stage area that had, I believe, 3 tables set up in circular formation with 6 desktops at each, all having free-to-play Overwatch on them for the entire weekend. So that was a lot of fun. That was my first time playing PC because I am a console player. So that was interesting. to get into that. But I think overall, very well done in terms of incorporating their sponsors, incorporating really the whole energy around Dallas and the energy around the team. And there's things obviously that can be improved. It is only their second time around in the first homestand for the 2020 season. So things are going to improve as they host number 2, number 3, etc. But I think overall for the first time around, it was awesome. I enjoyed it.
And it was obviously smart of them to start in something dedicated to esports, like the esports state in Arlington. Obviously, that same weekend, New York was happening, and they were in the ballroom across from Madison Square Garden, correct?
Yeah, Hammerstein Ballroom.
And visually, what did you see the difference between something that seemed like it was developed for esports versus what you saw as kind of they fit themselves? It's the same thing that happened in Minnesota for CDL. They fit themselves into a space not necessarily meant for esports.
Yeah, and Philadelphia even did it this past weekend too at the Met in Philly, and it felt more like it when you look at the surrounding area. It's built like, especially it's in the name, a ballroom.
Yep.
So it feels more like you're going to see, if you were to step in there and not even know that it was an esports event. It feels like you're stepping into more of like a high class like theater type center. Like the Met was created in 1907, I believe. And they joked on the broadcast saying that I'm pretty sure they didn't think in 1907 when they opened they'd be hosting an esports event.
Yeah.
So when you think about it like that, they have to adapt, and Philly's building their own arena, which should be ready for next year. But
I actually was wondering before it happened if it was ready already, but then when I watched the broadcast, I was like, I guess not.
no, they broke ground in it, I think, at the end of last season, and it's supposed to be ready for 2021, and it's going to be the first ground-up esports-focused arena in North America, and it looks awesome. If you haven't seen the videos, go check it out. It's fantastic.
I've seen them. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Incredible. Yeah. And what I noticed in the difference is the other two venues felt and looked more intimate to me than what Dallas had.
Yep.
Dallas felt more like a stadium, whereas Philly and New York felt more of an intimate scene where, I mean, some of the fans were 3-4 stories up and it felt like they were on top of the action. So I feel like that might be a bit different, and that might also help in terms of crowd noise.
Yep.
Because there's not a lot of area for it to go. It's all compressed in there. So I think in terms of the environment, Philly and New York might have been better. But I think in terms of production and from a broadcast standpoint, it was much better, in my opinion, in Dallas. So there's pros and cons to each.
So are we seeing now this thing, though? If you remember, think back to Season 1 Overwatch League. Remember how small it felt? It was like a bunch of chairs just in front of the stage, and then they had the giant LED wall, which really gave its production value, was that LED wall. If you took that out, they were in the middle of an empty warehouse, Now, as the season got more popular, they added more chairs in, and it kind of got a little more fulfilled. But what I'm noticing now, even for Call of Duty League 2, is it more beneficial for these smaller arenas for these leagues because you can hear the crowd, you can feel it, because again the noise gets louder and louder, and as these things are getting bigger, do we think that these events should be held in smaller places until we've actually all right, so what we were talking about was do we think that right now with Overwatch League and probably in Call of Duty 2, would they benefit from having smaller arenas because of crowd sizes and what they have now? Do we think that a smaller arena provides a more fun broadcast? Do we think that that's going to be better until they really kind of get going?
So two things. For a fun broadcast, I think yes, because you can to me, I love hearing the crowd noise through the microphones of the casters. That shows me, if I'm sitting at home, that it is hype there. And to me, if I'm sitting on my couch at home, I'm like, well, I want to go to the next one because I want to be a part of that energy, especially if I'm a fan of the team, say in Dallas, especially if I'm a Dallas Fuel fan. I want to go to the next Dallas homestand because that sounds like it's a lot of fun. And what you'll do is, from the business standpoint, you don't want to stretch yourself too thin. So if you go into an arena, like if you run your numbers and you think that, okay, we're confident that we could sell 2,000 tickets easy to our event. Okay, so try and find an arena that's 2,500, maybe 3,000. But at that point, you don't want to be looking for arenas that are 5,000, 6,000 seats, because at that point, you're not going to sell all the tickets,
Yep.
and it's going to look bad on the broadcast.
For sure.
So making sure that you sell out the arena that you plan to go to, I mean, that's step number one without a doubt.
So, I have to jump into something like that. I'm always going to try to compare things to Call of Duty League because it's crazy how far behind they are, even from Overwatch League. When you're watching in the arena for Overwatch League, you're hearing the shoutcasting in the arena, correct?
Correct.
So what Call of Duty has not figured out yet is how to make sure you can hear that and not hear both the arena audio and the shoutcasting audio at the same time. You can always hear the echo. No matter what, you can hear when the shoutcasters are talking, you can hear the shoutcaster in the arena. But on Overwatch League, you don't. You never hear that like echo ever. You only ever hear either the crowd or you hear the shoutcasters. It's weird that Call of Duty has this thing where you can still hear like remnants of the audio in the room, you know?
Yeah, and I know there was a point, I believe last week, where it happened for like, I want to say like 5 seconds, where you could hear Uber's voice in the Philly arena over the broadcast as well as him on the broadcast as well. But it only happened once.
Yeah.
And again, what amazes us is that one league is doing it when the other isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And the crazy part is that both leagues are owned by the same damn company.
Yeah.
Like you should be passing on
like
information.
Yeah.
At minimum.
Yeah.
At minimum, just be like, hey, so this doesn't work, but this works.
Yeah.
And that baffles me, as it's owned by the same entity and they don't share notes.
Yeah. Now,
right? Like it feels like they don't share.
But here's where it gets kind of like what we talked about last time about how the companies themselves are very responsible for the homestand, right? Is like, who's at fault here? Is the people putting on the homestand, even though it's a broadcast provided by the league, who's at fault when something like that goes wrong? Is it the people putting on the homestand, or is it the overseers of the league? Like, who's at fault?
When you look at it from a technical broadcast side, maybe you can even speak more to it because you've been behind as a director.
The league's the people that are at fault, but still.
Yeah, like I feel like that's without a doubt it's the league, because that's your issue, right? Like that it's not Tim Tom's issue to go check your like audio and make sure that everything's in sync. No, that's your job behind the scenes to make sure that, hey, everything's okay. You should be in there 2-3 days prior, if possible, if not an hour before the broadcast, checking microphones to make sure there's no feedback coming over. And if something does happen, you know how to automatically fix it. Like that has to be sorted out before anything ever happens.
Yeah, and what I'm hoping is that, again, just like with Overwatch League, right now as they travel, they're going from different venues. So is the changing of the venues, every venue has its own problems, its own wiring, its own everything. Is that because they're constantly changing venues? Is that constantly causing an issue? I mean, in the last Call of Duty thing, they had problems where teams were switching from one side of the home and away. They're switching to the other side, and that was causing problems. Just moving teams from one side of the stage to the other was causing problems, And it's like, my thing was, this is where I have a problem with Call of Duty League. Did they not think of these things before they started the league? Did they just go, okay, everybody's put in $26 million. We're going to start this thing and just see what happens. And if I was an owner who put money into a league, I'd be like, wait, y'all didn't have this figured out yet? Like how do you start a league and you don't have the league figured out,
Yeah, that part is annoying. And I do think you brought up a good point, is the changing of the venues, right? Where, well, because Owl's been the one that's been around for 2 years. Owl played in the Blizzard Arena for 2 years. They knew what they were doing when it came to production. There really wasn't anything that changed week to week. It was just different games. Everything from a production standpoint was at its core the same. They didn't have to worry about setting up wires or making sure, like, hey, we have to triple check this because it may be out of place. No, everything was mostly already in place. So when you go to Hammerstein Ballroom, Esports Arlington, the Met, when you go to these different places, I'm sure they go and scout the location out first to kind of check everything, I hope. But if not, you're in there in I mean, you know what you're doing, but you're essentially playing a guessing game with the arena
Yep.
because you don't know how it runs, you don't know how it's going to react, etc., all that stuff. So at times you're just playing a guessing game. Whereas you look at traditional sports leagues, their arenas are set up for a broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
They're all set up to do it. There's no confusion when it comes to, I mean, even at a minor league level, they're all set up for even the crappiest broadcast in the world, like on one camera. It's still set up for it. But these places, like, again, the Met was built in 1907. They weren't expecting a video game to be live streamed there
Yeah.
113 years later. So it's like it wasn't set up for that. And even Esports Stadium Arlington, it has migrated into that, but it was just a convention center. So it's still, even a convention center wasn't built to live stream an event.
Yep.
And I think the only place that's going to be like that is Fusion Arena come 2021. And I'm interested to see how that broadcast goes, where the casters sit, where the host desk sits, if they bring them to the Fusion Arena, which I assume they will, because it'll
Yep.
be a fantastic place to go. But I'm interested to see how that looks, because you could tell from the Met in the Hammerstein Ballroom that where the casters were was very crowded.
Yeah.
Compared to Esports Stadium Arlington, where I saw where the casters were standing, I mean, they could have taken a nap if they wanted to, wherever they were standing. There was plenty of room for them to maneuver.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting. It's just, I keep coming back to that word, but it is going to be interesting.
So you've experienced the inaugural weekend, and now we're technically in between week 2 and 3, right? They just went to Paris this last one, correct?
They went so they were in Philly. They're going
Philly,
to,
and that's right.
yeah. So weeks 2 through 7, the second homestand was technically canceled.
Yeah.
Because of the coronavirus in China.
Causing big problems.
Yes. So they were supposed to have matches in Guangzhou, Hangzhou, and Shanghai.
Mm-hmm.
Those got rerouted to weeks 5, 6, and 7, blah, 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 blah. They'll be played in a studio in Seoul, I believe, during those homestands.
Yep.
So they were just at Philly last week. I believe they're going to Washington, D.C. this week. So that should be a good one.
So now, what have you, from first week to second week, what are you seeing that you feel? Did we see any improvements in the broadcast? Did we see anything that felt, even in the game, whatever it was, did you feel watching week 1, did anything feel like it got learned and moved into week 2?
So for anyone listening, if watching, whatever, if you watched week 1 of the Overwatch League, you very well know about Cheez-It Crunch Time. Now, from what I saw, that didn't happen during the broadcast that I were watching, but I saw more memes around Legends of Soulguard.
Okay.
Now, in the broadcast I watched, there wasn't any interruptions from Legends of Soulguard, but I did miss 2 of the games because one, I was at a bull riding event, because Texas.
Of course.
And the other, I'd taken my girlfriend out to lunch. And so the 2 that I watched, I didn't see anything wrong with the broadcast. It was very well done. Halftime show was good. I still, and I know Zoe has to work into this, but to me, Zoe isn't ready to host yet.
Mm-hmm.
And she's never done it before. She's been an analyst. I think she's working very well into that role.
She has seemed like that so far. Yeah.
She seems to stutter a little bit.
Yeah.
And again, it comes with the territory. She has to follow up Puckett, who was really good at his job.
Yep.
So, and again, Zoe, English isn't her first language. So that's definitely a barrier already that she's had to deal with the past 2 years. And again, she's been an analyst, so she's been thrown the questions that she can react to. She's now throwing the questions to react to. And for those of you who have never been behind a mic or been in front of a camera, that's a culture shift. That's very hard to do. So she's working into that. But I think overall, from a broadcast standpoint, week 1 to week 2 was much better. Happy to see Achilleos and Wolf back. Shoutcasting, Uber and Mr. X, always fantastic. The casters, there were no issues there. I don't think there's been any issues, honestly, with the casters the first 2 weeks. The only one, I think, are Jaws and Hexagram. They just don't have any chemistry yet. And
which is
they need to build that.
Yeah.
Yeah. They need to, which is very clear. Like, Hex and Semler did have somewhat of chemistry, and I wasn't the biggest fan of them, but they had chemistry and they could bounce off each other. Jaws and Hex don't have that yet.
Yep.
So I'm waiting for that chemistry to build, and I'm sure once it does, those guys are going to be great, because I think Jaws has a great voice and a great knowledge of the game. And I mean, he speaks in a foreign accent, so it obviously puts him one step higher than most people. Broadcast wise, I think everything went well. Again, my biggest thing was the Cheez It It's Crunch Time sideshow timed it. It was overlaid on gameplay for 42 seconds. And we talked about this in our first podcast. Yeah. Justin, how easy is it to switch out of a commercial, or how easy is it to switch out of an overlay?
One button.
you click a button. Yeah. Like, it's right. Like,
now, to be fair, if it's routed and then say the thing's starting to fritz out a little bit, I can see a world. I know there's a world that can exist where a glitch can happen and this thing is just rolling and rolling, and somebody somewhere's like, look, I don't know why it's doing it. I can see that happening. It's a live show, and I can see a thing becoming a loop, the thing fritzing out. My computer just died. You know what I mean? Like, the things can happen where you're just like, okay, well, that happened. So I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. But from what I've seen so far, it could have just been a mistake and nobody was paying attention. And then they were like, oh, we should probably turn that off. So.
And from what it seems too is, I think all of these commercials and like that part of the broadcast, I don't know this for sure, but I think it's coming from Los Angeles. So that's already all set up, because they're just pulling the feeds from wherever the homestands are. And it seems like everything is running through Los Angeles. Yeah, that's so the desk, like the watch point desk, is in either Burbank, Los Angeles, wherever the studio is.
Okay.
So they're there. And then they say, we're now going to throw it out to Uber, Mr. X, Achilleos, and Wolf in Philly, in blah, blah, blah. They'll go to commercial, then go to them. So stuff like that. I think
I've switched a live show from Florida that was happening in Texas before, or not Texas, in New York before. So it's 100% possible. I just didn't know that's what they were doing. I thought they were doing it a little more locally than that. So.
I mean, they may have trucks on site.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that, but my guess would be they already have the studio and stuff set up in LA. Sure. What would be the point?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's how I feel. Like, what would be the point?
So I want to talk about something that I think is, I streamed on Monday and I talked I kind of actually watched the Philadelphia thing back a little bit. I watched some of the Call of Duty League's most recent thing. And then I went on yesterday and I was just watching, again, I'm going into Call of Duty's content more than anything. And I just feel like we're empty, I just feel like we are not at like any kind of pinnacle content. Everybody talks about it. Content's king, and how are these brands going to make their money through content? The word content gets thrown around more than anything right now.
Yep.
But what's crazy is that a league that is set up to have a lot of content, there's not a lot of content. I'm super surprised that when Overwatch League has a thing coming up, there is not bumpers, there is not interstitial thing, there's not commercial based thing, especially now that they're on YouTube. There's not commercials, there's like, it seems like the content for itself building up. I know these athletes, they're probably running them ragged as it is, but that's why you have other people. That's why you have people a part of the broadcast who, like, where is the content that is actually driving this league to make people excited or even informed about when the next thing is? Right now, I would have to go to a website to figure out exactly when and who's playing next. But it's the middle of the league on a platform that is one of the biggest platforms in the world. How come I don't just know it? How come I have not been forced that information? Do you not think it's crazy that they're living on YouTube? They're on the biggest platform conglomerate or content conglomerate in the world, and yet we have nothing that's really telling us what's happening in the league, how the league's going. Like, what are you seeing? Like, even for Overwatch League, like, do you feel like we're getting any kind of content? Have they learned anything in the last 3 years?
So that, and just from like you talk about like what games are coming up next. You're right. You don't really even see that on Twitter, and I'm pretty active on Twitter in terms of Overwatch League, and I don't really see like graphics on. Again, I could be missing them, but I don't really see them. They're not prominently there. And if you want to figure out who's up next, you either got to go to the Overwatch League website, or they'll say it on the broadcast, but you have to be watching the broadcast. And I don't know what CDL does, but I know Overwatch League does it very sparsely, if that's a word, sparingly.
Sparingly.
And what they do is they'll show like a quick 15-second commercial of the Call of Duty League, and it's the same one over and over again. And it's just saying, hey, Call of Duty League. Like, it's not announcing when the next games are, where the next games are, where to find tickets. They're doing that with Overwatch League homestands. Like, they'll say, hey, the next one's in Houston in 2 weeks. Here's the URL. Go here. So, like, there's call to actions there, but not with the Call of Duty League. And I figured there'd be a lot of cross-pollination, cross-promotion between the two leagues because, again, I feel they're owned by the same company.
Yeah.
I feel like they would want both of them to succeed.
They should be talking about each one of them, you know? Overwatch
Exactly.
League it's just, you know, we're these guys, we're all building, we're working, we're also observing. And if we, as even fans, not just people part of the business, but fans, if we're wondering, where is the content? Where is the stuff at? Like, you have to imagine a casual fan is like, I mean, I have no reason to be interested. You know what I mean? Like, we're locked. You've got us. But like, if you're trying to, you know, broaden that demographic, if you're trying to bring in new, how does anybody know what's happening? And how can you? Why is there not always in the middle of this league that I think they said they spent? I think the deal was like 170 or 80 million for the rights for the YouTube. Like, should that not be plastered at the top of your YouTube thing, especially if you're trying to make us, you know, like the YouTube homepage, I should have a schedule on it so I know what's happening, or at least a portal to the schedule, you know, like. And what makes me always kind of weary of that is, was the YouTube deal the last minute thing? Did they just randomly just go, all right, we'll do YouTube instead of Twitch? You know, like how? Like, and what we're hoping for in the future is, are they going to figure these things out? And I hate to say it, after 2 seasons of the Overwatch League, now I don't think they are.
I mean, again, you hope they will.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, at some point, you start to think like they're just settling. And the one thing that I liked is when they originally announced YouTube as YouTube Gaming as the host platform for Overwatch League and Call of Duty League, they announced it, I think it was the Wednesday before Call of Duty League was about to kick off.
Yeah.
So it was like 2 days before it was about to actually kick off. And because I was wondering, I'm like, where the hell are these games going to be hosted?
Yep.
Like, where am I going to be able to watch these games? And I knew that Activision Blizzard probably weren't going to go back to Twitch. So I was interested to see who was going to make the run at this. And YouTube Gaming did for $160 million. And the previous deal with Twitch was 2 years, 90, excuse me. So $45 million a year. This, I believe, is a 3-year deal worth $160. So average annual value, AAV, if you've never heard the saying before, is basically just around like $52 million.
Yep.
We'll call it that, $53 million. So already more per year. But then what kind of was hesitant to me is that they said it broke down. It was considered 160 for both Overwatch League, Call of Duty League, and they threw in Hearthstone basically as like a free thing. No money is going towards Hearthstone.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm interested to know the breakdown of how much the Overwatch League got and how much Call of Duty League got. There was a lot of reports saying Owl got most of the money and Call of Duty League got a secondary amount. I'm hoping it was split between 120 and 40, 110 and 50. In favor of the Overwatch League. I think you couldn't do anything under 100 to 60 because at that point, to me, yes, it is an improvement from 90 million to 100 million. Yeah. And when you look at it in normal people terms, $10 million is a lot of money. Yeah. Like, someone would love to have an extra $10 million over the next 2 years. Yeah. But when you look at it in terms of sports leagues and sports franchises, I mean, that's a backup quarterback contract in the NFL. Like that,
or when you make $14 billion in ad revenue, and you're one of the biggest platforms in the world.
Exactly, and it's like you're at like where is the ad revenue? And
Where are the ads? Where's anything that they run during the broadcast? Why does the broadcast look like it's coming through a 640p camera sometimes? You know, like it's crazy.
I agree.
It sucks because, like, you know, I feel like, you know, a podcast I listen to often is the Business of Esports, Paul Dawalibi, and all them. They're super hypercritical, right? Very hypercritical of the league and Blizzard Activision in general. And here I am. I feel like we have to be critical too, but it sucks because it's like we're only doing it because we want to see it do well. You know, like nobody here is like hating on it. We just want to see it do well, and what we're, as I guess you could say, younger people trying to, you know, make our way up in the business, we're confused because we're like, this seems like no-brainer things, you know?
Yep.
It's
and
good.
The one thing that, I mean, people have probably heard plenty of times is once you stop talking about it is the moment you stop caring about it.
Yep.
So once people stop talking about the league, both Overwatch and Call of Duty, is the moment that it's going to start dying. The fact that people are willing and engaged enough to basically crap on the league, to essentially say, what you're doing right now sucks. That shows that people are engaged and people want your product to be better. Like Overwatch, everyone says, oh, it's a dead game. They need to fix all these things. You wouldn't be talking about it if you truly didn't care about the game.
For sure.
So, and that's the thing, is the moment they stop talking about it is the moment they stop caring, and that's when you lose them. So please,
which is the issue with baseball. You know, baseball
yes,
fallen out of
God.
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. Yeah, don't get started. But it's the same thing. It's like baseball is just fallen out. We all know the issues with the what's their content thing called, whatever it is. But where they, you know, content is so controlled that you can't post anywhere. So it's like people just stop talking about baseball. And we're here, we have the opposite. They can do whatever the fuck they want, and they're not doing anything with
it. Exactly. And the one thing I always bring up about baseball is, I mean, it's the America's pastime, according to a lot of people. It's America's sport, is baseball.
Yeah.
And the one thing you always hear from baseball is a web gem, which is a ridiculous catch. I mean, a 400-foot home run, like a giant blast, an awesome play.
Yep.
Why am I not seeing every day after games the top 5 web gems? Like, everything is found on the internet. It literally writes itself, which I like that Overwatch League is doing. I believe every Wednesday or Tuesday, they're releasing the top 5 plays from week 1, week 2. I'm like, that is the stuff I want to see.
You're talking about for traditional sports, yeah. Well, baseball, they've got that. I forgot the name of it. It's like the CAP or the COM. They have something that is, you know what I'm talking about?
Is it BAM?
Yeah, BAM.
Baseball Advanced Metrics?
So literally, they can't. They're right now, they cannot do the very obvious 2020 internet. This is how you keep the sport exciting.
Correct.
I think somebody just came out the other day talking about it. It was like yesterday or maybe a couple days ago. There's a player who was like, baseball, you're messing up. Let us put some stuff on the internet so people talk about us again. And the BAM thing is what's slowing them all down.
Yeah, and I mean, what's plagued baseball right now is the whole cheating scandal with the Astros.
And, not just cheating scandal with Astros, cheating scandal, and then doing nothing really about it. You know what I mean? Like,
oh God,
yeah.
I can't. They released betting odds today on who will get hit first by a pitch for the Astros. Oh, I cannot wait. But yet, like, if there was no cheating scandal happening right now in the MLB, you wouldn't hear a peep from baseball.
Not a word.
So in essence, I guess this is technically good because, I mean, during Super Bowl week, there was more buzz around baseball than there was around football.
Yep.
And the Super Bowl is, without a doubt, not even close, the biggest event in the world every year.
Yeah, for sure.
Every single year.
Yeah.
Maybe excluding the Olympics every 2 years, but definitely the biggest sport in the world every single year. So for baseball to take that over is crazy. And I'm not saying someone in the Overwatch League go and, you know, add aimbot onto your computer so we can have a cheating scandal here.
Again.
But exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, just please listen to survey your fans, listen to your fans, focus group them, ask them, what do you want to see out of the Overwatch League, out of the Call of Duty League, and even tournaments, like, or even for organizations in general, just to build buzz around your sport and around your organization. Just ask your fans, or put yourself in your fans' seat.
Yeah.
What do you want to see from your league, your team, and just execute that?
Yeah, which is interesting you said that, because who's the guy who owns the fuel? He's from MV, the owner, the Hastro. Or
The
whatever.
owner,
Yeah,
Hastro.
yeah. So he's always talking about, like, in order to do well in these leagues, you gotta work with the community, and the community is very vocal right now about what's working and what's not. That's not like we're not shy of people going out and saying this doesn't work. But you have to now wonder, where does that go? Because I think right now their focus, specifically because I've talked to some people behind the scenes, their focus is just keeping this thing going. But it's like, at some point you got to stop worrying about there's a term, I can't think of it, but like, you're throwing water out of the sinking ship. You know what I mean? Like, you're trying to, instead of fixing it, you're just trying to pull the water out. It's like, just fix the ship. Do something that is more, more in line with what your fans want to see. Now, on the flip side of that, like I said, it looks like at Philadelphia, it looks like even in London for Call of Duty, those people had fun. Live, it was fun, So it's still got that going for it. But we're trying to talk about a league that we want to see go more than just, oh man, that league, that one season, that was fun. That was cool. We want to see things that are sustainable, and we know it shows signs of being sustainable. Having 0 ads on your stream shows me that there's something wrong. I mean, I don't like ads, but it shows me there's something missing. It shows me that money is not changing hands somewhere, and it needs to be, So
When all of your ads
are the same thing.
Are your own entities that you own, like Legends of Soulguard, Call of Duty League.
Yep.
And again, we know that you have league sponsors.
Yeah.
We know this.
Yep.
You have Coca-Cola. You have Cheez-It, in my reference to the Overwatch League. You have State Farm.
Yep.
So make some damn commercials. Like,
make some content specifically for this audience. Don't rehash.
Yes.
Just make some content for the audience, Stop showing this for Call of Duty League. Stop showing that same damn scuff commercial over and over and over again, when we know that half the players aren't even using the scuff controller. Like, we know this, It's like, do something. Where is the content being made specifically for these broadcasts? Now, I don't know. We don't know what conversations were had when sponsors came on, like, you're going to do this kind of content, you're going to do this kind of thing, or they were sold on this will just sell itself, But, I don't get why brands are not just making content specific for these broadcasts, for this audience, It's strange to me.
I agree. And I think look at State Farm. Let's just use State Farm as the example in terms of curating content specifically to an audience.
Yep.
You watch an NFL game, State Farm is a sponsor of the league. Who do you see on those commercials? Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
2 prominent football players. You watch an NBA game, especially a nationally televised game. State Farm is a league sponsor. Who do you see? Chris Paul, James Harden.
Yep.
You see NBA players. Is it that difficult to create a State Farm commercial where you have Sinatra, former league MVP, Jonak, former league MVP, super great big personality, Jake, one of the I don't give 2 craps who it is. If you put a high profile name behind a funny State Farm commercial, 1, the sponsor is going to be happy because they're going to get better engagement, and 2, you are making more money.
Yeah, for sure.
It's that easy.
So,
and
good.
I was just going to say, like, maybe the sponsors don't want commercials, and that might be an issue.
Yeah.
So sell them on the commercial. Yeah. You got to do a better job of selling.
So touch on 2 different things. I want to go kind of jump to one. So it's interesting you said that Overwatch League, if you were to say the top players right now, obviously I think Sinatra, not player and talent, I'm talking about like, who they are by name. Sinatra's one of them, right? Can you name me? You name 2 other people. Jake's done now, right? He's gone.
So Jake is a caster now. Yeah.
Houston's heart's gone for the most part. Is what it looks like.
Yeah.
So, but Sinatra is the name, right? Whereas in like Call of Duty, right now, Scump is the name. Scump's the guy making all of the fun he's the one everybody keeps talking about. He's the one killing it right now. He's just the face of Call of Duty League right now, in my opinion. What's interesting, going back to the other one, is that at least they have that going for them. So why is there not more content based around them? But I was going to say, who do you think the face is? This is a jumping up, but like, who's the face of baseball right now?
I love that question. Because to me, there isn't a face of baseball.
None,
if you were
right?
to, no, if you were to tell, like, if you were to ask me who the face of baseball is, it's Mike Trout. But where do you see Mike Trout's face?
I guarantee you I can go down the street and ask people who, I mean, you can do this with a lot of, no one knows what the Sinatra looks like. I guarantee it right now. There's a lot of people who don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you poll the audience, there's a lot of people who probably would not even know that was Mike Trout, even if they're baseball fans. Like, he is what we call, like, you know, walking down the street, famous but not famous. He can walk down the street and people are going to be like, I don't know who that is. You know what I mean? That's what baseball has now.
Exactly. And it's different from esports, right?
Yep.
Because esports isn't a big four sport in America.
Correct.
It
hasn't been around for 50 or 60 years.
Yeah. Exactly. If you walk down the street and LeBron James on the other side of the street, you would know who the heck LeBron James is. You walk down the street, you saw Patrick Mahomes. You would know who Patrick Mahomes is. Now, you walk down the street and people argue hockey too. You saw Sidney Crosby. Maybe you don't know who Sidney Crosby is. Maybe you do.
Yeah.
But in baseball, I'm sorry, if you're walking down the street and you look across the street and you see, and there's Mike Trout, I'm going to say that 85% of people don't know who Mike Trout is.
I'd be like, hey, did this guy wander out of Home Depot?
He literally, he is an average white man.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's what
I was saying.
He's
Like,
just
he just
tall.
looks like he'd be working at Home Depot.
Exactly. He's tall. He's an average white man that just makes $430 million over the next 13 years.
And he stands for 75% of it. Like, that's the thing about baseball is how much they stand versus how much money they get. Baseball players just stand for it. I mean, if I were a guy with one, I'm like, literally their salaries they spend either sitting or standing, you know?
I mean, that's what I love to do. That's why I love breaking it down. It's like, Tom Brady gets paid to throw a football. Like, when you break it down to its core, right?
But
like,
I mean, there's more
obviously
to that, though. There really is more than just throwing the football, you know?
No, 100%. There is handing off the football. 100%. There's definitely more to it.
Situational awareness, in and out of the pocket, learning offenses, learning defenses. Like, these are actually things that you would use in his job. These are things you're using 50, if not 80% of the time. In baseball, you are standing 60 or 75% of the time.
Sure.
How do you make that much money?
Because there's this cool thing called a salary cap in other leagues, and I believe Overwatch League and Call of Duty League has that.
Yeah.
You can't pay players. You can only pay your players a certain amount of money.
Yep.
Which helps from teams getting too loaded. So, as loaded as the San Francisco Shock are, they can't go out and get Jonak. They can't go out and get, like, they literally can't build Team USA.
For sure.
They have to abide by certain salary cap restrictions.
Which is good because that's what's becoming a part of sports. It's just throwing money around. And that's why these people it's hard for lower teams to make it, is because these bigger teams are like, let's just buy all the good players and put them on one team. So
it's hard for the Florida Mayhems of the world.
Correct.
To rebuild.
Correct.
And you look at it now, is they found young Korean talent.
Yes.
And so far, they look pretty good.
Yeah.
But they found young Korean talent, but that's the thing, they signed them for cheap. Like, they weren't high profile players that they signed. They had to rebuild and find that talent, which if you follow traditional sports, it's just like a farm system. Overwatch Contenders is like AAA baseball, the G League for basketball. So it's resemblance of that. So, and you take shots in the dark on those guys. You know that they're good at the minor league level, but how will they perform in the major leagues?
Yep.
You don't know.
Yep.
So, and that's where the parity comes in Overwatch League, which is what I love, is the parity of you can only stack your team so much.
Yep.
So that's the good thing that the league has going for them. But again, that's what everyone sees. We need to see the business stuff behind the scenes get better.
Yeah, for sure. So coming into, I know this week's Atlanta's homestand, correct?
Atlanta for Call of Duty and Washington, D.C. for Overwatch League.
So I'm excited because I think this is the weekend where the two probably better teams, which is Atlanta FaZe and the Huntsmen, are finally going to play each other. So we're going to kind of see the two like big dogs go at each other for the first time. Plus, I feel like Atlanta kind of has plans for a homestand that might make it interesting. Where'd you say you said Washington is for the Overwatch League?
Washington, D.C., yep.
What are you looking forward to for that one then?
So what I'm interested in looking at the schedule, there's some really good games in my opinion that are on here.
Mm-hmm.
There's really only one that I think is going to be a blowout, and it's the New York Excelsior against the Houston Outlaws. Houston sucks. New York's really good. It's that simple.
Could this be the thing where we find out that if Houston's like paying attention and they make some changes? I doubt it. But if they come out strong and they can be like, oh, cool, we just needed to wake up a little bit, that would be beneficial. For the league, it would be beneficial.
100%. If they stop running Brig Lucio, that would be just fantastic. Let's put Rockets on his Team USA hero of Ana and let him just go to town. Let's do that. Because Jack said Ana Lucio is a viable composition, people.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So this.
Yeah.
But you're right. Houston has a huge fan base, and one of the most loyal fan bases too. They're rowdy. They love their team. So if Houston's good, it's good for the league. Mm-hmm. But looking at this week in terms of what I'm looking forward to and what I'm hoping to see, I'm looking forward to seeing how packed this arena is for the Justice.
Yep.
Because they were an expansion team last year.
I think they have the
and
best
we
kit.
saw,
Yeah.
And we saw in stage 1 and 2, they sucked at GOATs.
Yep.
GOATs was the composition back then, which was 3 tanks, 3 supports. If you now watch Overwatch, you know that it is a forced 2-2-2 composition, which is the greatest thing this game has ever done.
Yeah.
But they ran GOATs. Once they switched out of GOATs, their 2 DPS players, Corey and Stratus, got to shine. And the Justice became a force and not just a team where you looked at it's like, oh, easy W. Mm-hmm. Now they're a force with those 2 guys manning their damage line. So I'm interested to see how many people come out because I want to know how many Justice fans there are.
For sure.
And possibly how many Philadelphia fans are willing to make the trip to DC because it's not a far drive.
Yep.
So I'm interested to see how many away fans from Philly, because that's the closest part. Maybe New York, that is a drive, but New York does have 2 games. So I'm interested to see how many people make the drive because if there's a lot of Fusion fans in the audience, I think that bodes well for the league, showing that fans are willing to travel. Yep. And I think that's a good thing that can be showcased. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the away teams show up, in specifically the Fusion and the Excelsior.
Yep.
There's going to be a couple people sprinkled here and there. But how is the crowd noise when you hear Philadelphia Fusion walk out onto the stage? They're not playing the Justice, so they're not going to get any boos.
Yeah.
How is the crowd noise when the Fusion walk out? Is it just hey, welcome to the stage like you would any other neutral team? Or is it you can hear the fans?
Yep, for sure.
That's what I'm interested in seeing this week because, again, if your fans are willing to travel, you skip like steps 4, 5, and 6. You're already at 7. Like that is a huge leap to take if your fans are willing to travel.
So now in terms of presentation broadcast, give me the 2 things you think Overwatch League is doing well right now, and give me the 2 things you want to see improve for this weekend.
All right. So what they're doing well right now is I like the back and forth that they have going between the homestand and the desk in Los Angeles. I like the back and forth they have. The halftime show that they're doing seems very, very well planned out in terms of the content they want on the screen, in the topics that they're talking about. So that's one. Mm-hmm. The other thing, compared to Call of Duty League, that echo that you hear in the arena from CDL, you don't hear in Overwatch League. So that is something that's good that I want to bring up. Now, 2 critiques. I don't know if they can do. Yeah. What I want to see improved is the integration of the commercials.
Yep.
It feels like they just cut they go from the countdown to halftime, or match begins and then they have that countdown clock. It feels like they'll play that, and then 5 seconds in, they'll cut to the commercial, cut back to the clock, and then 7 seconds later, cut back to another commercial. I want to see more seamless transitions in between those commercials.
Yep.
And from an in-game standpoint, in terms of the broadcast, I want to see more focus on the star players.
Yep.
So one thing that I had noticed when I was watching is, and you're a Mayhem fan, Saya player is statistically the best Widowmaker in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And I would heed that he's top 2, if not the best. When he was on Widowmaker on Havana, which is a known sniper map, they were on him at times. But to me, if I'm a fan, I don't care if I'm an Outlaws fan or a Mayhem fan or I'm a neutral fan. I don't care. I want to see Saya player.
Yeah.
I want to see his POV. So I want to see them focus more on the star power. Like of course, I love objective cams because I can see everything and I'm not just focused on one person.
For sure.
But if we're about to get into a team fight, man,
Show me the
and
aces,
it's Philly Fusion against the XL, and we're on a long sight range map. I want to see Carpe if he's playing Widow.
Yeah.
I want to see if we're in a contested team fight, I want to see Muma from the Houston Outlaws on Reinhardt. Like, I want to see these things because those are the signature heroes. And that's how you get, I feel, people more involved and maybe like the player a little better. Like me, when I watched Happy last year from the Guangzhou Charge, and they focused on him on Havana getting a 4K clicking heads, I'm like, wow, I want to learn Widowmaker now. I'm terrible at Widowmaker, but I want to learn it. And it's like, that's the exciting part of your sport. Like, watching people go off on damage is the exciting part of your sport. In Call of Duty, watching people pop off or come back, like they're down 3v1 in search and destroy, and they come back and clutch it. That's the stuff that you want to see. So it's focusing on the right people at the right time in game. I think that is a big aspect of it that they may have been missing the first 2 weeks.
Okay. I'm gonna touch on this for a second. I think what is the map that is kind of like the Temple of Anubis? It's that very sandy looking map. Which one is that for Overwatch?
Oh boy,
it's got a little market in the middle, and then it ends up on the temple, and there's like the whatever.
Nepal.
Not Nepal. It's very sand. Looks like sand. Looks like Aladdin, like the kind of sand. Whatever it is. The reason why I'm bringing this up is that the Shock's colors are orange, and the sand and their colors look so similar. So when you're playing, you know how like the teams, their stuff matches their colors. Like Reinhardt Shield's green when the Outlaw are playing. Well, anytime the Shock of them are playing on a map like that, that's like super like yellowish orange. Like I don't know how the players do it. I get lost watching it going, I can't tell where the stuff is. So I feel like they need to saturate or do something to differentiate. I don't know if it's the Outlaw or if it's the Shock or the other team that have like a really it's like a burnt orange or an orange color. And every time I watch them play on that map, I'm like, man, if I was playing them, I'd be pissed. It'd be like, playing somebody with a green, super green, look on a green field in a green, with a green ball. You know what I mean?
So two things there. The Shock changed their colors. They're now like black and silver, which is like super sharp.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
The Chengdu Hunters are orange and black.
So it was them.
Which,
okay.
Yeah, shout out to Chengdu, my favorite team outside of Boston.
Okay.
But the one thing in game is that not a lot of people know, they have the basic skins on in game, and they just see blue and red like you do in any normal Overwatch game.
That's good to know. Okay.
Yeah.
I was actually saying that'd be smarter, but it's good to know that for sure.
Yeah, I don't know how they overlay it on the broadcast.
Yeah.
But they do that. So in game, they just have the original basic skins on, and they see red and blue just like you would in a normal game.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
All right. For me, the two things I want to see Call of Duty. I think they're. What are they doing well? I think they.
That's terrible. Let me think. What are they doing well?
I think the gameplay is there. When it's going, the gameplay feels good. I feel like we're getting exciting Call of Duty, and when the gameplay is good and the crowd is in it, we're getting what we came for.
Yeah.
I just broadcast wise, I'm gonna be like a. I'm gonna keep saying the same things over and over and over again. I think they need to pick up the speed of the broadcast. If you even watch back my stream on Monday, and I was gonna, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I'm talking about this too. This clock countdown thing has to disappear. We need something that goes there. Something sponsored that just goes there instead of waiting 2 minutes for the next match to start. I know 2 minutes it sounds like, oh man, it's 2 minutes, but like if that happens multiple times, you're gonna lose people, and or you're just gonna be like, oh god, this thing's like something needs to be happening in that time. And I don't. How is it that it's not just somebody's job to just do something there? Like that we have to get rid of. I was watching the broadcast. At one point in time, they went to the countdown clock and they cut the audio, so you were just staring at a screen with the clock counting down with no audio, and it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? So I just hope that. I have to believe these people are throwing emails back and forth at each other, and Joanna Ferries and them are reading these emails and going, guys, we got to figure this out. We got to step this up a little bit. I have to believe that's the case. I have to. As somebody who, if it was in my shoes, I would be like, guys, this is an issue we have to figure out. Or it's an issue that's very well known for them, and they just, for whatever reason outside of what we know, they don't have a solution for yet, But I know there's smart people working there. I know there's marketing people who are just as tenured as anybody else who are looking at those spaces going, we can be selling this. So the question is, what's happening? That's what we got to figure out. And I hope they improve on that. And I really hope they improve on the content outside of the game. Before Call of Duty League started, they had the road, or they call it the campaign, which is these like videos that were building up to the first thing that was really like these inside, scoops on what was happening, and low ground footage of like the players and that stuff. I don't know if the players got sick of it, or it's like, where did that stuff go once the league started? I don't know. And I guess another thing I want to add is I want to know more about when things are happening. I don't get how YouTube's platform is just letting Call of Duty die. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't even talk about the fact that the viewership numbers are way down from what they were before. So I think we should we'll get one more example of what could be happening. And then when we talk next time, we can kind of be like, is this getting any better? Or are we just seeing the downward slope of two of should be the most prominent esports out there right now?